Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop for another, I guess I'll call it a moment of peace. These moment of peace discussion videos don't get a lot of new subscribers. They don't get many visitors. Mostly they're watched by you loyal subscribers. Carbide tools, wow. I guess I never realized how controversial it was going to be. That topic that Jeff Barnes and I did in those two recent videos, but I thought it was worthwhile providing some commentary on it. I got more dislikes than usual. It could be from some of you die-hard conventional tool users that couldn't understand why I even talked about carbide, but from the general comments that I got from you avid carbide users, I suspect it was from some of y'all that felt like I failed to cover some information that you thought was important. Then I got an email from YouTube saying that they were going to cancel my channel. It was under review because I had too many spam videos. I thought, oh boy, this carbide's really stirred things up. But then when I looked more carefully at the email address that had this email.ru in it, I did a quick Google search and discovered that it was a email company owned by a Russian internet company. So when they said fill out the survey, it was clear that they were just trying to hack into my channel. This shout out's for Madmaker, who gave the following comment. Said, wow, some crappy comments on this video with people who clearly didn't actually watch it properly. Good insight from both carbide users and an experienced traditional tool person there. Hats off to you and Jeff. Looking forward to part 2. So thanks for that comment, Madmaker. But I have to say, in hindsight, after really looking at all the comments very carefully, there were some common themes. One that I probably should have talked a little bit about materials, such as that carbide is especially good for, such as acrylics and resin, and I agree that was something that probably should have been mentioned. And when I think about Bill Jones, who's like a third-generation ivory woodturner, passed away a number of years ago, they used primarily scrapers with ivory, and I suspect if they had carbide back then, they would have been using carbide because there's some materials that don't slice very well. Viewer Lewis Dean mentioned how well carbide works with mountain mahogany, which turns very dense, one of the densest woods in the United States. Doug Rowell mentioned using it for his experience with using it with acrylics. Carbide works especially well for that. So besides the main reasons a beginner would use carbide, I think there is a place for some wood turners who favor conventional tools for using a carbide tool for a very special purpose, such as acrylics, or in the case of Rick Morris of Rick Turns, he said the one he made does very well for doing shear scraping for finishing cuts. In the final analysis, Glasscutter makes comment that it's like, in my humble opinion, I think carbide tools have their place in wood turning, but one must exercise good judgment on when and where to use them. Keep in mind that my primary focus for those videos were for brand new beginning wood turners that were trying to decide between going the conventional route or the carbide route. They weren't focused on experienced carbide users that already knew the answers, that yes, you can sharpen carbide. You may not get as sharp as it came out of the box, but you can definitely extend the life of it, and I'm aware of that. Yes, you can get a better cut, more nuanced cut that takes a little more skill if you make a shear cut at a 45-degree angle. Perhaps I should have mentioned that, but again, I didn't want to confuse the basic wood turners. But in hindsight, based on all the comments that I got, maybe I should have mentioned those two major areas. That is, the possibility of sharpening and lowering the cost, and holding it at a 45-degree angle and getting a better cut. I will have to say I disagree with some of y'all that say you're going to get a better cut with carbide than you're going to get with conventional tools in normal wood turning circumstances. Although clearly, as I stated in the video, it does have its advantages, which is low learning curve, lower initial price. You don't have to buy a grinding wheel grinder and setup jigs, and you can just buy replacement cutters. But my takeaway is that clearly there may be an opportunity for another more advanced video on carbide. I'd appreciate your input on that. If you click on the poll, you can vote whether you think I ought to go into it a little more deeper and cover some of those areas that I missed, and possibly some additional areas. For those of y'all that don't have access to that poll because of the device that you're viewing it on, you can always leave a comment. I do want to say I do plan a future video on nano carbide cutters, such as those sold by Mike Hunter and used in his tools, as well as a few other tools manufacturers. Jimmy Clues has a set of tools that use Mike Hunter's nano carbide cupped cutters. And in many instances, those are designed in order that you can do a shear cut. So I'll certainly cover shear cutting with nano carbide in that video. Storage rack. Enough of that carbide. Let's get to talk about my recent video on storage rack. Had an interesting comment. Valerie Henschel, I had an opportunity to meet at Portland. I appreciate your comment, Valerie. She said a friend loaned her a set of jaws for a project, and they were in a tuna fish can, so that was a handy way to keep the jaws and the screws together. Several viewers offered the suggestion of a threaded rod or stud from aluminum or steel mounting onto the wall with screws, such as the one that's shown here. There are even a couple of commercial versions of this, primarily available in Europe, that look like they could be effective, but for my taste, frankly, kind of an expensive solution for a club. Thomas Hood pointed out a flaw. He said, "Where do you put your woodworm screws?" On the picture that I had, it was like, I left that off, but it was easily modified by adding a little strip of wood to the side with holes in it for the woodworm screws. But thank you, Thomas, for bringing that to my attention, and I was able to fix it before we even got it mounted. Matter of fact, it'll be Tuesday. I'll take it up to the club and mount it. On picking a lathe, viewer Jonathan Solway commented that he really strongly urged everybody looking at lathes to go to a wood turning store that sells several and kind of get a feel for them and try them out to see what you like. As I mentioned, the four major brands all have pros and cons, and that I think most people would be happy with any of them. But you really should, if you have an opportunity, find a friend that's got one, or go to the store and just move the parts around and check it out, see what you personally like or dislike. Had a question from Velimir Sarak from Canada. Hope I've got that pronounced right. He said this doesn't have anything to do with video, but he was wondering about where I get my apparel. Well, I'll have a link to that video where I talk about smocks, and I'll have a link to my Amazon affiliate. I'll have an Amazon affiliate to those cool do-rags that I wear that are typically worn underneath helmets that I get from Amazon, but I suspect you can get them at places where welding supplies are sold, since they're frequently sold for wearing under helmets. Sometimes y'all get a question, I'll have a question from one of y'all asking about, do I have a video on this, that, or the other? And I just want to remind you that if you go to my home channel and you can type in a word for a search, whether it's sanding, micro mesh, bowl gouge, parting tool, put it in that search field, and you're likely going to bring up that video. So that's the fastest way to search for it. And I'd say keep your search term short, a single word or 2 words. And if you don't find something, try a variation. And lastly, I would urge some of y'all who are just getting started and interested in maybe binge watching or looking at a particular whole area, that I organize most of my videos into what they call playlists, and you can find them on my channel as shown here. And I've got them grouped by whether turning bowls, turning boxes, making a stool, beginning wood turning projects, and the list goes on and on and on. And I've grouped all my videos in playlists, so you can go straight to a video bring up and start watching. And you can look to the side of your YouTube page and you can see what's coming up next on that video if you want to jump ahead or get out of them completely. Okay, I'll have links to those carbide videos in case you missed them. Also want to mention that I do give private lessons in my shop. Details on my website if anybody's interested. I live just north of Atlanta. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.